committee will come to order. Will commissioners, staff, and guests please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Limited public comment. This time, any member of the public wishing to address the committee may do so for up to 3 minutes. You?
Give that to Michael, please.
Thank you, sir.
Jim Brown, Supervisor, Hastings Township. I'm going to read this to you. There's two things in here. I'll let you read the local news reporting at the top of this thing. It's very good information. But the bottom one is, the headline is fair is fair and a tax exemption in this case is not. The decision of the Hastings Charter Township Board of Review to put the county's Harvest Point Senior Living Facility on the tax rolls was not a hard decision to make. The new county facility is in direct competition with every taxable privately owned facility of this type in Berry County. This tax exemption gives the county an unfair and unjust advantage to pay their share of expenses that all others have to pay. Private facilities have to pay to finance their tax-exempt government to be their competition. The tax millage to pay to subsidize Thornapple Manor to manage to stay in business just adds insult to injury. The county should pay their fair share. It's that simple.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there further public comment?
Mic on this morning?
No idea.
You'll have to check.
Check it, yeah.
Hey. Morning, Gary White, Village of Nashville. Today it looks like you're going to go into closed session again for property. I did a few weeks back, got offered to go and review the master plan facility, Berry County Master Facility Plan. I went and looked at it. This was paid for, and Hoot, you were on there. I think Ben, you were on there. I'm not sure who else was on there. But you have distressed properties, I guess might be a way to put it. In this, it was said that you should either fix up your properties you currently own, or at least, put some back on the tax roll. You have a property, scuttlebutt is, that's not going to be available for 2 years that you're looking at. I'm just sitting here. You're going to have at least 3 new commissioners coming on in January. Why would you want to strap them with what you people might want to do, especially the outgoing ones and new ones that are going to be coming in here? You have hyperinflated property values right now, so I'm not sure why you should be looking at it. If you're not taking care of your distressed properties, why would you want to buy more property? If you're not putting vacant properties or closed properties out for lease, for rent, or for sale, once again, why are you looking at buying more property? You probably shouldn't even go into closed session without reviewing your master's facility plan and debating on what you need to fix up before you guys leave or before the new commissioners come in, instead of saying, well, gee, we just need to buy more. If you can't fix up what you got, should you really be buying more? It doesn't matter if you say, well, because if you buy more, you're going to have another distressed property, correct? So why don't you let the next commissioner have a clean slate to work with, clean up some of your facilities that you need to clean up now, and don't buy more. Thank you.
Is there further public comment?
Cheat sheet.
Good morning. Ted DeVries, Prairieville Township trustee. I had a chance to watch the meeting last week online, and I was quite impressed with Jim and Tammy's presentation on all the work that they're doing here in the county. I had wished that maybe more had been said about the Watson Drain project. Not much was mentioned on that, and no questions were asked. And I apologize to Jim and Tammy if there's another meeting that they're going to give to the county regarding lake levels. I'm still a little concerned on the Pine Lake lake level project. Really not knowing exactly where we stand on the current cost of that particular lake level project. I'm sure the county would probably like, maybe an update. We definitely need to correct our assessment district as it's, the engineers, when they originally set up the project, used a outdated assessment district, and it's missing well over 100 parcels. And I guess the other thing I was going to mention is that because of all the special assessments and millages that currently a lot of the townships in Berry County have, that when you finally do decide to continue your discussions on a new jail, that you may want to look at some of these other townships and say, okay, will they really want to add something else to their tax bill when they've got weed assessments, road assessments, special assessments on with the drains, the lake levels. So, just another, hardship for the county to try to overcome. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Is there further public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
My name's Al Graves. I live on Pleasant Lake in Delton, and I'm here this morning. I see on the agenda, and that Jim is going to be presenting a lake level limit for our lake. I've talked with Jim about this, and I was reluctant. But over the course of time, and especially going through the flood situation we had and all the work that Jim put in there, and he did put in a lot of work. It was a lot of hard work. I don't know if you noticed, but he won that award.
He did.
It was in the paper. I think that is outstanding. I know Jim has faced a lot of criticism over the years since he's been in, and especially with this drain thing. And I'm to the point that because of this, I really trust Jim. I trust his decision-making process. I trust the people that work with him. He's come through a lot. So I'm in favor of that. The next thing I'd like to say is that over the course of time, especially the last couple of years, you guys have been under a lot of fire. Now, I haven't been up here to the meetings a lot, but I've kept up with it, talked with people, and I've heard and I've seen what has happened over the years. It's about time someone says to you, good job. You guys have hung in there, and you've handled your responsibility. And I don't think you get enough of credit for that in Berry County, because you don't just represent brick and mortar, trees or land, you represent people, real people. And I think that you have done a fantastic job. Ben, you've hung in there under a lot of fire, both places. So at this time, I'd like to personally thank you, Bruce.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Dave. You've been a good friend. Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you. Who had good retirement. Hey, thanks, man. Welcome.
Thank you.
Don't let these guys buffalo you. Hang with Vivian. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Al. Very kind. Is there further public comment? Hearing none, we'll move ahead. At this time, the chair would entertain a motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 2210, a resolution to initiate lake level project for Pleasant Lake and Mud Lake. Wants to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion is made by Gibson, supported by Jackson. Discussion. Morning, Jim. Good morning. Doug and
Waiting in the wings.
Is you leaving you out there all by yourself, Doug?
I'll try.
Oh, getting a chair. What's that program?
good morning.
Big giant head.
Good morning.
It's third rock from the sun.
What?
The big giant head.
Yeah. Wait till the other shoe drops. That's what we're worried about. This is the final step that we believe is going to be necessary for the whole Watson drainage issue. Pleasant Lake has been off and on flooded for many years. You can go back historically, the health department wanted the lake level to be controlled because they have sewer systems that are low there. When it floods, there's problems with that. There's literally buildings in the water. And we replaced the culvert under Floria back in 17 under Brian's supervision and put a steel plate on there to let a little bit of water out, trying to help these people. As it was, we got into a discrepancy with DEQ because the steel plate that we put on the end wasn't quote-unquote permitted. Great idea. So they said, oh, you got to have an after-the-fact permit, which we did, and the copy of the permit is in here, but it is a piece of paper that is written specifically to deflect all liability off DEQ. And let me read the way that permit is written, because even Doug said, I ain't never seen nothing like this. It says, this is an emergency permit to install a temporary water elevation control structure on the upstream end of the 24-inch culvert underneath Floria Road to allow the controlled draining and or holding back of water in Mud Lake. The water elevation control includes a steel plate installed at the end of the culvert with a 12-inch opening that would be covered by an adjustable cover secured by a sliding gate bar. The water elevation control structure will be adjusted only at the discretion of the Berry County Drain Commissioner, Deputy Drain Commissioner, or project engineer based on flooding issues both upstream and downstream of Floria Road culvert crossing. The water elevation control structure shall be secured to prevent tampering. Basically, the DEQ did not want any responsibility of how this thing should be operated. And I am the last person that wants to be able to say, okay, this is the lake level, because there's too many parts going on here. The DNR wants the wetlands controlled.
The DNR?
Pardon?
DNR?
Yeah, because, I mean, it's a huge wetland complex around Mud Lake. You can go back in the file where they said, you know, working on the culvert, you need to do a study and yada, 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 which they have no discretion on, or just, they didn't have the jurisdiction.
Okay.
We have, like I say, septic systems on Pleasant Lake that are flooded when the lake comes up. We need guidance on what lake level to set on this. We've got the engineers, we've got the lawyers to make sure this gets done and done right, so the county's off the hook and it basically goes to a lake level. To give you a little bit of guidance, Higgins Lake just went through one of these things, and they had years of lawsuits back and forth, suing the county because things ain't done, the court order was poorly written. There's just a lot of things that, talking to Doug, talking to Brian, there's a lot of liability for the county on this. So we're asking that you guys, Brian's already done a feasibility study, which he'll explain, and Doug will explain the legal stuff, but we'd like you guys to consider doing this. I know it's more cost on the people, but in the end, I think it'll improve their property values and everything else. Who's up? I'm out.
Well, I was just gonna point out that this,
Yeah, please use the microphone.
sorry. I was just gonna point out that this permit expires June 6th of 2023. The implication we got the permit was that this was just a temporary thing as far as setting the lake level, putting a control structure in there. So the plate and all that, they knew about they wouldn't have known about the Watson project at the time because we were just getting petitioned at basically that time. But the basic idea was that this was a temporary thing and that to go through this, they push you to this process, the lake level process, the state does, the permitting. They don't like, we permitted this through part 301 and 303. They do not like permitting lake level structures or lake level control through 301 and 303. They want to go through the legal statute of part 307. So the implication was that this was not a permanent thing and that you would go through the lake level process, within that 5-year period. So I do point out it expires June 6th, and I would think that would mean that we would have to take those controls off if we don't go through this process.
Well, that was very good. I don't have much to add. I would just say from a risk management perspective, this, obviously, we don't want this wide open permit. We prefer a court that say it provides protection for everybody. The court sets the level, sets the special assessment district, and all we have to do is comply with it. So right now, this permit is, and as a matter of fact, it was the subject of the lawsuit that we prevailed in, knock on wood, but it could be a problem, and we'd like to have a court order in place that provides protection for everybody. And I don't know if Brian is. I don't know what kind of construction would be required if this is a big project, it might be worth mentioning that because a lot of times, you're building a dam or something which is expensive, but I don't think we got that here.
So if you look on page 4 of the feasibility study, it's approximate construction costs, and it lays out basically $35,000. And essentially what that is we've got the pipe in under Fleur Road. We're going to put a new intake structure on the end of it. So a much larger, probably a top draw. It has a certain elevation. Once it hits that water elevation, then it'll go down. So it won't control the low levels of structures, but that $35,000 is to install a new control structure. Again, this piggybacks with a lot of stuff that we did for the permitting on Watson and Cloverdale, but we're using a lot of those elements that are already done as part of the permitting. But there are some costs in that for environmental permitting. So it is. There are some things that have been done that are saving costs in regards to this, but $35,000 is all that's for construction. And we estimated 123 properties. $78,650. That's $639 per property, and that's total. We do have the ability to split that up into multiple years for the assessment.
So those are estimates.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have to get through the court action too. So.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners? Dave?
Are they going to increase the size of the culvert under Floria Road? Okay, how big is?
I mean, we don't anticipate to unless that came back as something as part of the permitting. MDOT is swapping out the box culvert that's underneath M43 there, that's part of the drain. They're going through their process, and they have in their hydraulic group, they came back with a very large size box culvert that that's something they're paying for entirely. But unless the state came back and said, it needs to be larger for some reason, but
Is that the M43 culvert off Glassby Lake?
that's
Okay.
where that's just south of where the railroad comes up. So it'll be just River Sprague Road is the next culvert downstream on the Watson Grade.
Okay. Okay.
We don't expect to change it. We got the biggest culvert in there that would fit under our jurisdiction. Brian can give you the details, but basically, the culvert that was there, we matched the, what do you call it?
The pre-existing,
Conveyance, and it's a 2-foot. It's plenty big enough. It'd just be the structure. We basically need to put a structure on the end of that tube to control the water.
Okay, so it's a 24-inch culvert right now.
Yeah.
All right, and this is what you cleaned out that had concrete in it before and some other things a few years back, okay. Do you know what height that, do you know what the low level of that culvert is set at as far as?
About 3 feet below the lake level. And that's the other thing is, right now, the only direction we have legally is to put it back to the height that the drain was at in 1903. So, and if we open that up, and we knew it at the time, Brian and I had a long discussion, we're gonna wipe out that wetland, we're gonna take Pleasant Lake down 3 feet. Them people are not gonna be happy. We tried to explain that to them, that, hey, that's the only legal direction we have right now.
Okay, well, that was my other question, because I know if the culvert is set at a certain level, once the water hits that, because as I looked at that culvert last year on a couple different occasions, there was no water moving through it because the water was so low. So in essence, you have a legal lake level, or you have a lake level where the culvert's set at.
No, actually, if we shut that plate last summer, because once the people quit complaining, at around 9:29, we just shut it. It had nothing to do with the height of that culvert that's under the road. That culvert, we could drop that another 3 feet.
I think it's down there like 926 is the neighbor to that culvert. So we've
926.
got plenty of room to go down. Putting the structure on the end of it was something that originally we started, we were just gonna open that culvert back up into Mud Lake. And putting the structure on it was just something that we decided to do in the field because we knew that taking that water down 3 feet was gonna create a lot of problems on the Pleasant Lake, Mud Lake side, but then also on the Watson side at that time we were very, we were flooded. So it was just our means of putting something in just to hold it back and just as something temporary. We went back at it after the fact permit, basically with the state. They said that's fine to put that in there, and they basically said, you know, this is your baby, you decide when to open it up and when to let water down, and who to flood and who not to. So.
Okay. As far as involvement with the Pleasant Lake Association, have you guys had a meeting with Mary Maselli, their president, or laid this out for the people of Pleasant Lake yet?
That is a very fractured group down there. We met with them, Brian and I and Doug, 3 years ago, and said, you guys, the best thing you could do for your property is get a legal lake level. They're very fractured down there. There's a lot of them that want to put in a sewer system to take care of the problem. A lot of them that want to spend money on weed treatment. And Mary said, well, we don't know where to spend our money because if we treat the weeds, that's better. And I tried to explain to her, if you put in a lake structure, especially one with a summer winter level and you can draw the lake down, it will probably decrease your weed treatment because you're going to be able to, you know, knock out the weeds better. I said, same thing with fighting with the sewer. If we get a controlled level, maybe that'll save you having to put as much money into your sewer systems because they do need sewer around there. There's no doubt about it. But whether they'll ever get that done, and I said, if you can get some of the contaminants not coming out of the sewage into the lake, that's going to decrease your weed treatment. So it's a real mess down there.
Okay. All right, I was just curious if they had, if they had any involvement. Sometimes that they feel like it's being forced on them versus something that's being requested from you. It's a little easier sell.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little easier to work with there, and that's a growing lake. There's a lot of good people and high-dollar homes on that lake, but I've witnessed that flooding several occasions down there, so I know that needs to be addressed, so.
Yeah, it's just a bear of a deal all the way around. And I understand they don't want any more. They want to spend their money on weed treatment that they can see a right now response instead of the longer term. The sewer, they had it passed supposedly one time, and then something happened that it came apart, and now they can't get it passed again. It's a real tough deal. I mean, we had some really, really nasty, well, my mother-in-law was at that meeting, and she was nervous that there was gonna be a fight breaking out, because, well, we want this, and we want this, and we want that. They have no guidance, you know. Mary Maselli is from Illinois. She doesn't, I'm not gonna say any more about her.
Yeah.
She is the lady that showed up on site with COVID and didn't take the responsibility to stay away from anybody until they found out afterwards, oh yeah, she's in treatment for COVID, but she came walking right up to us to talk to her. So she scares me. Nice gal, I guess.
All right.
I'd like to ask a couple other questions, but
Yes,
if they're-
please.
they don't pertain to Pleasant Lake, so.
Go ahead.
Can I,
That's okay.
is that all right? No, after last week, there were a few questions that came up and just ask about the project timeline for the Watson Drain.
Yep.
As far as how the project is going and what the anticipated completion date would be.
We don't have one yet. They're working on the wet well, which will be on where the pumps were. We gotta put a wet well in there, which will bring the water in. The wet well can't be set until they have the rails that the pumps set on. The rails for the pumps, they could get us one, but they couldn't get us both of them. And I believe Brian talked to them last week, and they said they're expecting the rails to be in 4 weeks, give or take. But with the supply problems they're having, I mean, these are pumps that, 3 years ago, you could have got them in a couple weeks, no problem. Now you're looking at, many weeks struggling with it. To Ted DeVries' comment about why we didn't mention Watson, every one of the projects that I listed were ones that are completed and they've actually cured the problems for people. We have a lot of other projects, don't get me wrong. We've done the Nashville project and several others that we're working on. I mean, I could keep you here all day, all the projects, but those ones aren't to the point where they've cured the problems that they started on. So they're close, and the Watson, we'll have that done this summer, and we'll have the lake under control this summer, and next year it'll be on our presentation. But we want to save a little something for you.
So, all right, so we're thinking that this will be done this summer at some point,
Yeah.
and potentially pumping water this fall if it's required?
Yes.
Okay. I know the water level was low last year, so, but,
Yeah, we did good last year, but and we knew 2 years ago when DNR, DEQ, Eagle, whoever you want to call them, wouldn't allow us to pump in the winter, the lake came up about 14 inches, and that's what it did this winter. So without the pumps, that's going to happen every year. So, but we had some modifications to a couple of the buildings also, but that didn't slow this down. It's just we just can't get parts. So.
yeah. Pine Lake timeline, is that project still moving forward? Are you having another DEQ battle back and forth, or?
We've submitted the permit. We've got a rejection, which is normal. They got 30 days to review it, and they come back at 28 days, say, oh, you need this, this, and this. And then we put in all the equipment, or all the information they asked, and then we got another rejection letter last Thursday. So it's a game. Brian will attest that, you put in this, this, and this, and they send stuff back. And he literally, on the Watson project, had to tell him, it's on page 4, paragraph 3, line 2. It's there. And then he had to highlight it to send it back. And I think it's more of a drag it out thing than it is anything else. So we, theoretically, we could have that the drawdown permit early this summer. We could have it this fall. It's basically at their discretion. It's sad, but that's the way they do it.
As far as construction for the long-term solution, though,
That will have,
not coming in the next year?
no.
Okay.
The best we're hoping for this year is if we get a drawdown permit and the gravel pit that we believe it will take it to, we're going to do emergency pumping this summer, trying to get that lake down, and then we would proceed with a permanent solution. Probably at best this winter, possibly next summer. So it's going to be a while.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Further questions? Hearing none, the question before the committee is to recommend the Board of Commissioners adoption of Resolution 2210, a resolution to initiate lake level project for Pleasant Lake and Mud Lake. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Sorry to keep coming bothering you with this stuff, but some of this stuff leaves us.
It's been a flood of stuff.
Yeah, literally, we had a flood of it and stuff.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Here's a hard copy.
All right, next we have Rachel France, the recycling coordinator for Berry County, here to present the annual report.
One page?
Yep, there's one page for that. You don't have one, I got more. Anybody wants more?
hard time sitting to talk. So on this document, this is just a one-page summary of the 2021 activities of the Solid Waste Oversight Committee. Yes, please, sorry. On the front of the paper, page 1, it just goes through the summary of accomplishments, what the Solid Waste Oversight Committee is responsible for, which is working on the solid waste management plan for the county, as well as developing budgets and policies to reduce waste in the county with working with the commissioners. We also have the member attendance listed there with their term limit ends. And then on the right side of the page is the summary of the entire year's household hazardous waste events. Over 3,800 tires were collected last year. This is through the spring and fall event, and more than 43,000 pounds of hazardous waste. It also covers the income and expenditures of the committee, so if anybody's interested how my position and the other things that we do through the committee, the household hazardous waste event, how those items are funded, it is through the waste management tipping fees and the community foundation. And then on the back side, on page 2, it covers some of my annual report, so I won't go over that because I have a presentation for you, which I'll talk all about those things. And these, again, are just from 2021, so the numbers in my presentation are up to now. So the numbers are a little bit bigger in the presentation. Are there any questions on the annual report that I could answer right now before we get into the presentation?
Nope.
Fantastic. Okay. I have to stand up. All right, so my name is Rachel France. I'm the recycling coordinator for Berry County. I have been doing this since June of last year. Next slide, please. So, since June of 2021, I have written and published 8 educational articles in the Reminder. Currently, the 8th is waiting to be published, so look out for that hopefully this weekend. I have created 43 digital outreach materials. Those are photos and videos that I post on the website and the Facebook page. I've attended 31 local unit of government and other community meetings. I've given 4 presentations, attended 4 conferences, applied for and received 1 grant for $6,000. And then these Facebook numbers are through the end of April. I didn't pull May's numbers yet. So we've reached over 23,000 people, and we have achieved more than 30,000 impressions on the Facebook page. Next slide. Like I said, my position is overseen by the Berry County Solid Waste Oversight Committee and is paid for through the tipping fees. Next slide. Over the past 11 months, I have attended 11 Solid Waste Oversight Committee meetings and had a written and vocal presentation of my accomplishments per month at each meeting, excluding the first. And I have attended 4 conferences, 2 in person, 2 virtual. The last conference was just last week in person in Lansing, and it was really great. We talked a lot about funding, grant opportunities, and just a lot of networking with other recycling professionals around the state. So that was really helpful for me. And then I've met with and kept communication open with recycling coordinators from Allegan, Eaton, Calhoun, and the city of Kalamazoo. Next slide. The second task is to assist with the development and revision of the solid waste management plan. Next slide. Oh, never mind, this slide. So due to some changes at the state level and preparations for changes in Part 115, we are migrating from a solid waste plan to a materials management plan. So this basically goes from focusing on disposal to more of materials management, where we're trying to recycle more and get more reuse out of these materials and send less items to the landfill.
So what does this mean for on the ground, for the day-to-day operations of the solid waste board?
For the solid waste board, we will actually be, I believe we're forming another committee to work on the migration of that, and we will also be applying for an EAGLE grant for $10,000 to work on that management plan.
Okay.
So our solid waste plan is a bit outdated, so it's definitely time for this update. Next slide. The next task is to work with the health department on our biannual household hazardous waste events. Next slide. And this summary, oh, sorry. So this summary, or a version of it, you have already seen, I believe the Board of Commissioners has. For people of the public, you may not have. This summary is just for the fall hazardous waste event, which is, I was not president, but I was currently the coordinator, so I made the summary. As you can see, the event served roughly 500 households, and I have a breakdown of the top 6 materials collected by weight, as well as how much materials were collected in medical waste, which I think is really important because those items are hazardous for waste haulers, so we really want to keep that out of the waste stream. And this summary is available on the Berry County Recycles website if you're interested, and I will continue to put these summaries together for each household hazardous waste event just to show what we are preventing from getting into the landfill, the side of the road, and our waterways. The Eagle Tire Grant has funded the tire collection for us in the past years, making it free for residents. In the past, Eaton County has held this grant. This last year, they did not apply for another grant because they had leftover funds. And 2,000 of those leftover funds were for us, but that's not enough for us, which is why I applied for the other scrap tire collection grant. So that was $6,000, and that will provide 1 additional truck for our spring event and then 2 for the fall event.
How quickly do we fill those trucks?
I can't speak to that.
Generally speaking, in the spring event, we start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 1, we've got 2 trailers full, and we're stacking tires on the ground.
Great.
Yeah, so we may have to get a 3rd trailer next year. We'll see. Next slide. So very exciting. This year's event is this Saturday from 9 to 1 at the Berry Expo Center. We are accepting electronics this year thanks to Padnos in Hastings. They will be assisting us with that. Next slide. So this event is free and open to all county residents. So that's just residents of Berry County. Each county has their own household hazardous waste events, so it's very important that only county residents do attend this. It's free to collect these items. However, we are going to have a small fee for CRT and LCD and/or LED monitors and TVs. These are going to be based on size, measured side to side. We're not doing horizontal measurements just to give that little extra. So under 20 inches and under will be $5. Over 20 inches is $10, and we're accepting cash or check for those. I think that's all I have for that. Next slide. So then the 4th task is the outreach and education. Next slide. So these are, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I use a variety of techniques to do this, including public presentations, educational columns in the reminder, digital and print material, and the Berry County Recycles website and Facebook page. In the past year, I've given presentations to the Middleville Rotary, the Hastings Rotary, the Board of Commissioners when I first started to kind of get to know you all, and just recently the Pierce Cedar Creek Institute, where I gave a lunch and learn with Jeff from Eagle, and that was very successful. Next page. I began writing a monthly column for the reminder in October of last year. So topics so far have included general recycling information and drop-off locations for the county, why reduction should be the first step in recycling, ways to reduce holiday waste, plastic recycling, paper gator recycling, where recycling goes after it's picked up and what it becomes, and electronics recycling, and then the next one will be about composting, which is just another form of recycling. Next page. Go back one. Oh no, okay. I guess maybe I skipped one. The images and short videos are shared in a timely manner to assist haulers and drop-off centers with surges, for example, around the holidays. Next slide. These images and short videos are meant to clearly communicate with the public the best practices for recycling and to decrease contamination, which contamination is when the wrong items or items not prepared correctly are put into the waste stream. Contamination is really important to avoid because when a recycling load is contaminated, then it will have to go to the landfill because that load is not acceptable anymore.
The entire load.
The entire load. So there's a, I believe it's 25%. Each waste hauler might have a different one, but I've heard 25%. So as long as it's under 25%, that load is okay and they can sort it out. But if it gets to be too much, it's not worth it for the haulers or the sorting centers. So unfortunately, that's why I try to communicate. Oh, I'm sorry, we should be on the next slide. Yeah, so see, my little wish cycling is a nice way to say contamination, and that's where you're like, well, this could be recyclable, so I'm gonna just toss it in there. And my saying is, it's not my saying, but I like
Wish
to say-
cycling, so that's wishing that it would be recycled, but it's probably not going to be.
Exactly, like a lot of those single-use plastics, you're like, well, it's plastic, it's recyclable, right? But most of the time, it's not. So on the next page, so using guidance from our Berry County haulers, I have worked to create messaging that is consistent with their requirements so that we can decrease contamination. So I'm getting standard messages out that say, okay, this is accepted and this is not.
All right, let's go through this real quick.
Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Sure, okay. So the find the label, read the fine print, recycle right refers to the how-to recycle labels that are coming on more and more packaging these days. They're really great. It's just a standardized way to let people know how to recycle properly. You can see on the little label where it says US only on the side, it's got both pieces of the creamer container, which I used as an example. Those are my own creamers. And it said remove label before recycling, not recyclable if label's not removed. And I had never noticed that before. I knew that the type of plastic was recyclable, but I was surprised to see that. Of course, since taking that picture, now my coffee containers don't say that. So they must have changed the plastic shrink wrap. I'm not sure what happened there. But I just try to let everybody know, they have these great labels and they're very easy to understand. On the right side of the screen there, I did kind of a commonly accepted in Berry County items and then a not accepted. Of course, there are more items that are not accepted for recycling. These are the most common that haulers want to remind people that they're not accepted. So in some of these things are recyclable, like polystyrene or styrofoam. It is technically recyclable, but it is not accepted in your curbside or drop-off facilities because it is a specialty item. So there are drop-off centers, but it's not through curbside. Plastic bags cause huge issues for haulers and sorting centers. At the conference actually last week, I learned that the sorting centers have to shut down on average every 4 hours they have to completely shut down, stop all the machines, just to pull plastic bags out of the machinery because it gets all caught up. Those are, however, again, recyclable, but at store drop-off centers, I believe Walmart and Hastings accepts bags. I know Target does, Meijer, anywhere like that. The multi-layer packages, this is things like candy wrappers, chip bags, the little baby food pouches that are very convenient to have. They are recyclable, again, but only through specialty programs, and that's because they have multiple layers with different materials. So it takes a separating process to get those to be in a recyclable state. I think we can move on now. Outreach and education is also a helpful tool to encourage participation in our household hazardous waste events. Next page. And these are all on the Facebook page as well, all these pieces. It's also used to inform residents of important and exciting revelations in our programs and why certain things are not to be disposed of in the regular trash stream because of potentially harmful materials such as in electronics. Next slide. We also have posts just to kind of remind people to participate. We just posted the 7 days left on Saturday just to give that little, don't forget, we want to get ready. You want to have all your stuff together so you don't wake up next Saturday and say, oh no, I have to get everything in the car. I don't know what I'm bringing. I forgot my box last year, so I still have a box of batteries and light bulbs under my desk, and it's ready to go this year, though. Next page. So the first week of May was Compost Awareness Week, so I spent the first 2 weeks posting information about composting. Generally, you don't think of composting as recycling, but it is. It's recycling food and yard waste into compost, which is a very valuable soil additive. They don't like to say it's a fertilizer because there's requirements with that, but it is a fertilizer. And I use it quite frequently. I love composting at home. We have a page on the Berry County Recycles website with more resources on composting, how to get started at home, and then also just letting people know about the yard waste compost site that we do have in Berry County.
So you're going to be writing an article about composting next week or upcoming. Can you give us a little sneak peek on why it's beneficial?
Yeah. So compost and organic waste can be, in some studies they've shown that it's up to half of your trash bag is filled with organic waste. And organic waste, when trapped in a landfill, causes more methane, which is dangerous and harmful for not only the people right there at the site, but also the waterways and, people nearby. So it's best if you can, one, reduce your food waste, if, buying things on a list so oh, I don't need this extra pack of apples or whatever it may be. So you don't have to throw those things away when they go bad because you just didn't have time to eat them or your family's not big enough. Yeah, you'll have to read the article to get all the real info, and I don't, it is written, but I just have to submit it.
Thanks.
Yeah. Next slide. So another tool that I have utilized greatly is the website. Luckily for me, it was an already existing website. Most of the information was there. I had to do a bit of updating to get things to be more current. But I changed the homepage to have icons, which makes it a little bit easier to navigate once you hit that homepage where you want to go with supporting images and text because, it's just a little bit more accessible for people that way. I also added some new pages. We have a new FAQ page, just commonly asked questions. The new interactive map page, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. The drop-off centers and transfer stations directory. So this is something that you can just kind of use to search, and it will bring you directly to their pages if they have one. And then I also had created a standalone page for the Nashville, Castleton, and Maple Grove transfer station. Which I will again talk about a little bit later. And then finally, I had a blog page created to house those educational articles that I put in the reminder in case people don't get the paper or missed it. Those are all housed there, so you can refer there if you are interested in that. Next slide. So using the 2Go0 guide that was created by my predecessors, which is it's a guide to tell people what about the recycling opportunities we have in Berry County, as well as other miscellaneous disposal sites, things that you just don't know what to do with and where you can properly put that. So with most print materials, they get out of date pretty quickly. Businesses close, businesses move. So in lieu of that, I created this map to make it a little easier and to keep something that can always be up to date. It's very easy to update for me, and if I ever move on from this position, it's something I can easily pass on to another person. I do keep it up to date. So the way that this map can be used, you can either search your address or your business address or whatever, or you can directly click on your township, village, or city, and it will show you what waste haulers you have, if any. It'll show you what transfer stations or drop-off centers are available to you at your home. And then you can also search using that same bar, just specific materials. You could type in oil, and it will highlight all the places on the map that you can dispose of oil, as well as that drop-down menu on the side. You can just scroll through there and search that way. Next slide. So then my final task is to assist local units of government however I can. So I do this by providing support. I have attended at least one meeting for each local unit of government at this time, as well as 10 special meetings. This includes the Yankee Springs Recycling Committee and the Nashville Transfer Station Committee. Through these meetings, I've made a lot of good contacts. I've gotten to know a lot of people throughout the county, both on the boards and in the public, and I've kind of heard some really good questions and needs that people are perceiving, which mostly is access to recycling in their areas. I also have connected board members with grant opportunities, including the Berry Solid Waste Committee's mini grant program, which provides up to $4,000 in grant funding for improvements to recycling programs. This grant opportunity did just open up month before last. Yeah. So far, we have not received any applications, so I'm still anxiously awaiting. And I did send those to all the local units of government, but it's also available for nonprofit groups and businesses. So the sky's the limit. Next slide. So I did spend a lot of time working with the Castleton, Maple Grove, and Nashville transfer station, trying to help them improve their facilities and just to make it something that all the residents can be proud of and something that they will utilize. I did a tour, and then I also acquired some alternative tire collection bids. They were basically paying what they charged to get rid of those, so I found a couple of options that were quite a bit cheaper so they can actually make some money off of that process and provide some funds for that station. We formed a steering committee, myself and a couple, 4 other members, to kind of get a list of recommendations for that site to help them improve it. We presented those recommendations at their November meeting. Unfortunately, there has been quite a few meeting cancellations after those recommendations were presented. So as far as I know, I don't think much has been done, and I recently found out that Castleton has pulled from that agreement. So I will continue to support Nashville and Maple Grove in this. I've found some other grant opportunities to help them improve in addition to the mini grant program, which we can use as match for the other grants. So that's, less money that has to come out of their pockets or the taxpayers' pockets. Unfortunately, that's all I've got for them right now. I will be attending a meeting on Thursday to hopefully provide some assistance. Another thing I've been working on is the PaperGator. PaperGator is a collection service for paper and paper products that supports the organization where it is housed. We have 14 schools, 11 churches, and 3 other organizations that currently have PaperGator bins at their sites. These are mostly focused in the northwestern portion of the county. The southeastern portion has no bins. So I reached out to PaperGator with a very long list of potential locations that I would like to, before I sent it to the local units, I wanted to make sure that it was even possible. So I asked them, and they are not willing to send bins to these locations currently. It's out of their service area, and many of our bins don't meet the minimum requirements currently. So part of the reason I put the PaperGator recycling in the reminder was to kind of encourage people to use them and remind them, and also let them know that when you put paper in these bins, you're supporting that school, church, or municipality, wherever it is located. They did let me know that they will put us on a wait list so that if something changes, those locations may be eligible. Next slide. So my future goals will remain the same in many areas, with an increased intensity towards supporting the schools and local units of government, providing technical assistance, and working on grant acquisition. In addition to supporting the local units of government, time and effort will be dedicated to reaching out to the schools, working with the schools. I did actually just find a grant opportunity to get some bins placed at schools if they're interested. One of the things with my position is I'm not coming to tell people what to do. I'm just offering assistance. So if they want that assistance, I'm happy to support them. I have a lot of grant writing experience, so I'm very eager to get something going in all of our schools. I would also like to implement new programs, maybe get some green teams going at those schools. Student participation is really important for the success of these programs, to get student ambassadors helping other students understand why we want to reduce waste, food waste also. That's a far off dream I have, but I'll get there too. And then finally, I would be updating and reformatting the To Go Zero guide with more updated information, as well as working with the solid waste group or the other committee that is formed on the materials management update. Next slide. With that, thank you so much for allowing me to present, and I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Very impressed, Rachel. You've really enhanced our recycling program from what it was to what it is, and I'm very thankful that you're doing a whole bunch of different outreach that appears to be working. With that, I'll open it up to questions from commissioners. Questions or comments? Dave?
Couple questions. So the hazardous waste collection this Saturday, this is the first time we've taken electronics like LCDs, CRTs, TVs?
Over the last 5 years or so.
Okay.
About 5 years ago, we did that, and then we discontinued it.
Okay. Can we be sure that we get all this information to media as well? Because that'd be great. This is hazardous waste collection's been very successful and is a huge service to the county as far as cleaning up things like tires that people don't know what to do with, and old TVs and computers. So, and if you have those handouts, I know we've gotten some being on the committee, but it'd be nice to have a lot of Facebook exposure and exposure as much as we to continue to clean the county up. So,
Anybody else?
Just
Catherine.
just a comment. I mean, your presentation is remarkable, and what an impact you've had across Berry County, and it is a testament to what your enthusiasm has brought. I mean, you've reached more people than through your social media accounts, and it's just a multi-pronged approach, and I think it's going to be effective, especially over the years. So, thank you.
Thank you.
I would only comment, my voice is a little bit challenged, so bear with me. The 12 of us on the committee serve with the pleasure of you folks, and you select people that are on the committee. This has been a breath of fresh air, and we've had a one-year pilot program. We're going to extend that for another year. We just approved approved that at our last meeting. Okay. And then I would say that for the household hazardous waste event this Saturday, that is a premier of all the counties around us and many other places. It is really a premier event. And I would really appreciate it, kind of a tall ask, but if each of you would kind of swing by that day, take a look at what's going on, talk to some of the people. We get really positive accolades for the kind of things that we're doing there, all the motor oil and things that we take, and the tires especially. We get 3,000-4,000 tires. And I come from Yankee Springs, and we do a pickup area of the DNR area, and we normally get every spring about 100 tires. This year, because of these events, we've only picked up about a dozen tires there this year, so we really think it's helping. So really appreciate that. Appreciate all your support and that excellent job. Rachel's like fresh air to us, so
Yeah,
thank you.
Rachel's doing a great job. Anything else? Thanks, guys. Without objection, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. Hearing no objection, we'll come back in 5 minutes.